Broadcasting from the Prairie Sportsman Studios. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. We're not just a radio show anymore.
Heck yeah.
This is Sporting Journal Radio.
That's right. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in on this station right here by downloading the podcast or watching this on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. If you don't watch us on YouTube, if you don't follow us, if you are just listening to this online and you want to watch the show or listen to the show, don't forget you have a number of other options. And when you watch the show, sometimes you get to see some of the things that we're talking about, like coming up later in the show, we're going to have Randin Olson. We went musky fishing with him recently, and we filmed the entire thing. You're going to get to see us fishing for muskies. We caught a bunch of muskies in a pretty, I'm not going to say it's a unique way, but to me, it's a pretty unique way. Some of the musky guys out there probably do it like this a lot. But if you haven't done this, or if you don't musky fish a lot, it's a pretty unique way to do it. It was a lot of fun. We'll tell you more, and we'll show you. If you're watching this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look for Sporting Journal Radio. We've also got Ali Shakoor. We met him at AGLOW, and he had won a scholarship from NWTF to come to Branson and come to the AGLOW conference. So I was like, all right, we're going to interview you to talk about winning the scholarship and what you're doing with National Wild Turkey Federation, et cetera. And then he goes on to tell us that he's a biologist and a tournament angler, and he kind of blew our minds a little bit with some of this research that he's doing on walleyes. So we'll ask him what the research is and what he's finding out about walleyes coming up later in the show. And we've also got Joe Henry. We're going to talk about the new border crossing rules with Canada and the vaccine mandates and all this other stuff that's going on up there. Spoiler alert, it's being changed. All the mandates are being dropped. We'll explain more here in just a second, too. That's all coming up here. That's Dan Amundson right over there. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm very blurry again.
Oh, good.
I can't wait for the new camera to show up in the mail today.
It's happening today. We're pretty excited about it. Well, in the meantime, why don't you talk about our sponsors, and we'll roll those sponsors over you.
Okay. We've got Haybell Heights Campground and Resort. Book a trip to Devil's Lake for this fall or winter at haybellheights.com. Otter Tail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this fall or winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Camp Grayling, catch the Grand Slam, lake trout, pike, grayling, and walleye at Camp Grayling in Saskatchewan. OnX, know where you stand with OnX. Mid-Migration Outfitters, come hunt waterfowl out of heated 10-man pits and comfortable blinds this fall. Learn more info at midmigrationoutfitters.com. And Prairie Sportsman, watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel or check your TV guide for air times.
What was your favorite part? What was your favorite part of the AGLOW conference, Dan?
Well, we got to do some cool things, meet some cool people, talk to some cool people. I liked fishing. We got to fish with Pat Schlopper we showed last week. That was a lot of fun. Met a lot of cool people, hung out with a lot of cool people, and even some people I've wanted to meet for a long time and just got to virtually meet for the first time.
Dan got to FaceTime Sydnie Wells, and we're going to tell the story. It's hilarious. Maybe my favorite, probably your favorite part of your life.
Easily. It was the best day of my life.
But probably one of my favorite parts of the trip, too. It was a good time. We'll explain that coming up later with Joe Henry about how Dan got to FaceTime with Sydnie Wells here on the show. But, of course, we did very well with the awards. We're very thankful and honored to win some awards. Dan, you got a Best in Show for your photograph of Aggie. Congratulations.
Sure. Thank you.
We probably talked about some of this stuff last week on the show. If you want to watch any of the award-winning stuff that we got, so if you want to look at the photos, or we had a lot of people asking, well, we won all these things. What were they for? Well, we've got them all listed at sportingjournalradio.com. We got our interview with Jay Siemens won a first place. That was a great podcast that we did with Jay. You can watch that on our YouTube channel, or we've got a link to it right at sportingjournalradio.com. What was it? The turkey show that we did with Corey and Sam.
Yeah, somehow talking about pig fetus got us an award. I don't know. Some people would say that's the worst podcast we've ever done. Some people would say that's the best we've ever done.
I don't know if anybody'd say it was the worst. Maybe there were some weird parts to it.
Maybe some purists out there, but that was the funniest. I haven't laughed that hard in a long time. We need to do that again.
Yeah, that was a fun one. for sure. So check that one out, sportingjournalradio.com. And there's some other podcasts. We did a deer primer one.
Yep.
We've done, there's a couple of, the future of our ducks with Tom Landwehr and John Devney. That was a good one. That was one of the award winners. Anyway, see them all at sportingjournalradio.com. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure that you do it. And speaking of ducks, we celebrated the traditional Minnesota duck opener last weekend. And maybe it's because I've gotten older. I've spent a lot of time hunting waterfowl, and also this year too, we also spent a couple of weeks hunting ducks and geese up in Saskatchewan. So this opener, basically we were almost 3 weeks into our own waterfowl season for the opener this year. So didn't quite have the fanfare that it once had, but it's still a tradition, and it doesn't matter how many ducks you shoot. It's great to be out there. My 82-year-old dad was out there, and we were with your dad, who's my brother. So it was the four of us and a couple of other friends out there spending some time in the duck slough. And I just shot with a camera mostly. And Dan, you just basically trudged through the mud with decoys. And it was like, that pond was, have you ever seen it that dry before?
Not that dry. It was brutal. There was like a gallon of water in there.
It was bad. And that's the pond. It was pretty dry last year. In fact, that's the pond where you took that award-winning photograph.
Yep.
And it was way lower. I mean, most of the water was gone.
Yeah, there's like one little spot that was holding just inches of water, and yeah, we need rain really bad.
It may not have had a lot of water. It had all the mud. Yep. It was not fun to go through there, but they shot some. You hunted there on Sunday. We hunted there Sunday again, and you shot some ducks on Sunday.
Yeah, we shot ducks both days, so it was not bad. We'll take it.
Saturday morning, and we were in Otter Tail Lakes Country, and there were a lot of people out Saturday morning. Sunday, as predicted, was noticeably quieter, but there was a lot. That first half hour Saturday morning, it was a war zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty typical for that area, but good to see hunters are still getting out and shooting at some ducks.
Yeah. It was fun to be there. Weather was good. It got a little breezy. We saw some migrating geese coming over, and then it got a little bit of windy for the migrators, but we definitely saw push birds come into the area. Then we had some cold weather here this week, and I'm still excited. I haven't said this much, but Dan, I'm still excited to do some fishing yet this fall before I fully get into hunting mode.
Well, absolutely. I don't know why you wouldn't be. I mean, fishing's really good right now, and to neglect fishing is a poor choice.
Poor choice. I just like to hunt more than I like to fish, but I've definitely come around. I caught some of my biggest walleyes in my life last fall. I'm excited to get out there and start chasing walleyes this year. And we filmed a musky episode for Prairie Sportsman a couple of years ago with Randin Olson from Lockjaw Guide Service up in Otter Tail Lakes Country. And we saw, I think we had 8 fish that we saw. 2 of them we put in the boat, Randin put in the boat. This year was a little bit different. And we went out, so after duck hunting for 2 days, we went and stuck around in Otter Tail Lakes Country there and musky fished with Randin, and we caught 3 muskies that day. And it was a team effort, as Randin likes to say, because really he's setting it up, he's doing the gear, he's kind of watching the fish, and then we get to fight the fish, set the hook on the fish. So it's a little bit of a team effort. So when we say we caught fish, we all caught them. Give Randin most of the credit, really, for doing that. But we'll show you, if you're watching this, we'll show you how we caught those muskies. We'll break it down for you coming up later in the show. And I'll just say, and if you're listening to this, we'll say it was a unique way to catch them. There was some heart-pounding anticipation, and I broke a rod. He says, set the hook like you're going to break the rod. So I did. And I broke the rod. And we'll show it to you coming up later in the show with Randin Olson. Big news for those wanting to go to Canada. If you've been holding out for them to drop the vaccine mandates, they finally did. Starting October 1st, you'll no longer be required to be vaccinated against COVID to enter Canada or meet COVID-19 testing, quarantine, or isolation requirements. You're no longer required to submit public health information through the Arrive Can app, and you're no longer required to wear a mask in terminals, ports, and on aircraft. That Arrive Can app, I was a little skeptical about it because when I was in Canada and had to use it, you had to report in with your symptoms every day for a while. They said it didn't track you. There was rumors that it did track you. I think it came out that they were kind of sort of tracking you somehow, but anonymously, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, when we crossed this year, Dan, the Arrive Can, app kind of helped us get across the border pretty quick.
I would consider using it again because you upload your credentials right to it, and you had to upload your vaccine, your proof of vaccine, which obviously you're not going to have to do, but you upload your passport or enhanced driver's license or whatever you're using to get across the border, hand them your passport at the border, you put in what port you're at, blah, blah, blah. Hand them your passport at the border, they scan it, and again, this might be unnecessary now because you don't have the vaccine requirement, but they scan it, so they never had to ask for our vaccine requirements. They knew who we were, they knew where we were going, and they would ask us that too, but they'd scan it. Okay, you've got this. Do you have any booze? Do you have any cigarettes? Do you have any blah, blah, blah? And we're on our way. Yeah. It was really, really, really efficient.
Whether or not that it was the app that helped us get across, it sure seemed like it. And whether or not you're worried about being tracked, that's whole nother discussion. But it did seem like it helped us cross the border easier and quicker, almost like they already had some of the background information that they wanted to get from us at the border. And just anytime I cross the border, I always feel like if I have all my paperwork in order, I've got it all organized and I've got it ready for them, whether they're asking for it or not. Like if I got my dog with, I got my shot records, I know exactly how much beer and what brand it is. Like they asked me what brand I had or whatever. As long as you are prepared at the border and you know what you have and you can show it to them right away, it's just going to make life so much easier. And maybe that app helps with that. I don't know. But either way, starting October 1st, you won't need to use it. You don't need to show proof of vaccination or any of that. So for those of you going to the Northwest Angle, that might be welcome news, of course. We're going to talk more about the Northwest Angle with Joe Henry coming up later in the show. We've also got Ali Shakoor. This is a great interview. We met him down at Branson at the AGLOW conference. A very interesting guy, very knowledgeable, and we picked his brain about walleye research. We'll tell you what he is learning about walleyes coming up later in the show. And also we jump in the boat with Randin Olson from Lockjaw Guide Service to do some musky fishing. All coming up.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
This is Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here by downloading the podcast, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Bret Amundson. That's Randin Olson right there, Lockjaw Guide Service. We're in Otter Tail Lakes Country today, and we are, I was going to say we're fishing for muskies, Randin, but we're catching muskies today.
It's always a good day when you're catching muskies.
We're already on the board. We've been out here, I don't know what time it is, but I suppose we've been out here an hour or so.
About an hour.
And we saw we live scoped 5 fish right away. 5, 4? 5. And then caught one pretty quick.
Yeah.
Here today so far.
Yeah, interesting catch too. Definitely have to watch the video because it's cool.
So we filmed an episode of Prairie Sportsman with you a couple of years ago where we were casting, and you caught 2 casting, but we were also dragging suckers kind of behind the boat too. And this year you thought there's 3 of us in the boat. We'll just clarify that right away. Dan Amundson's behind the camera there, and we're doing some casting, but we're dragging 2 suckers this time.
Yeah. So the trend out here lately has been the fish haven't been moving a lot. There's a ton of bait, so there's a lot to choose from, and they're just not that aggressive where they're really moving on casting bait. So yesterday I was out here and we did good. We caught 3 and had 2 more bites, and the majority of the action's been on the sucker minnows, and we had 1 out yesterday. So I figured today we'll put 2 out, kind of up the chances there, and we'll keep casting with 1 line. So worked out.
The plan is, and you've actually been watching them. You can see them on the electronics before. You've seen a few follows on the electronics, I guess the best way to explain it.
Yeah, when I first started musky fishing with suckers, I always assumed every time a muskie came up to the sucker, it would get kind of nervous and run around, and that's far from the truth. So being able to know those fish came up and know where those fish are sitting, it's a big advantage. We know they're there. We can always keep coming back to them as the day goes on until they're ready to rock and roll.
So you've actually got it mounted on your troller back there, your what is that? Vantage? Yeah.
Yep.
So you've actually got it mounted on your Vantage back there, and then you can watch it as you're trolling. Can you see both suckers?
Not at the same time. Maybe if you're doing a corner or something, but it's really easy. Just quick little turn either direction. You can watch the baits. You know if there's weeds on them. You know if there's a fish following them. It's a good way. The old days, you used to wait about 10 minutes and you'd reel it closer to the boat, check it. Nope, okay, we're good. And then now you don't have to do that. The suckers are staying in the strike zone the whole time, and you're looking for those fish coming and keep going through them.
Explain what we went through with that fish today, or maybe start with when you see a fish follow the sucker, what do you do next?
So generally what I'll do is pick up the rod first. I'll kind of let the fish come up to the bait. If they don't eat it after like 3 or 4 seconds, I'll start kind of moving that sucker and just pay attention to what the fish does. If he starts to back off, I'll just put it back in the rod holder and leave it alone. If he gets a little more aggressive, then I kind of keep trying to work that fish, kind of trigger him to eat it.
And when I think I was casting, I might have been talking to the camera. I can't remember what I was doing when that one, did you just see the bobber go or hear the reel, or how did you know we had a fish on that sucker?
The reel just went off. And I look back, bobber's gone, kind of scooting across the top of the water, popping in and out. And you just kind of know, you can kind of tell this. The suckers will run a little bit and pull some drag, but there's a whole different sound when the fish eats it. It's a hard smack and good little chunk of line gets ripped out, and you know it's game time.
I'd like to feel like I was in control of my emotions during that entire process, but there's so much anticipation. It's not like reaction where if you're casting and reeling or even doing an oval, you can react to that fish hitting and then the game is on. It's like when it hits this, there's so much time between when the fish bites to the hook set. But there's a lot of stuff going through your brain. It's going 100 miles an hour. I was trying to slow myself down just a little bit, and when you get a fish like that, you'll actually, before you set the hook, you'll get everything in place, you get the boat in place, you kind of move up on that fish, don't you?
Yeah, you want to get as close as you can. It's a pretty, I'd like to say it's a sure thing because you got 2 trebles and a front hook on there, but it all depends on how they eat that sucker. You know, if they eat it belly first, you might not even have a hook in the mouth. We've had where you set the hook and just nothing there. So it's a little bit of a guessing game. You know, you want to take it quick, you don't want them to swallow it, but it's a lot like deer hunting, but you're watching that deer come from a half a mile across the field. You know, you're just waiting and you want to go, but you got to be patient. You got to get things just right.
Well, and buck fever can set in a little bit too in both situations, and just like that, like I knew if that situation came up that my heart would start to race in anticipation of setting that hook. And it's like we were in slow motion. You know, it's just painstakingly slow. Once you know that the bobber is down, there's a fish just waiting there, and you're inching the boat up, and we had to, reel some line in, get some slack in the line, and I'm just waiting to set the hook. And you told me numerous times about the hook set, like giving her a real good heavy hook set. And I don't know if I had just built up so much adrenaline waiting for that moment, or just, some experience of when I fish for lake trout or big pike, I especially for lake trout when we're trolling, when you set the hook, those big heavy lake trout and their jaws so hard, you really have to do some heavy hook sets. So I'll tell people to do heavy hook sets, and they never do it as heavy as I want them to. Yeah. So you probably were telling the wrong guy to give a heavy hook set to. But did you actually say set the hook so hard you might break the rod?
Yeah.
What happened, Randin?
We broke the rod. I generally carry extra rods with, and I like to show them to people, say, look, it's all right, break the rod, I don't care.
How often does that happen?
That's probably about the 5th rod I've broken.
Oh, 5th time.
So it's not too bad.
All right.
I've been doing it for about 20 years. It's not too bad. But
well, it's already chaotic enough when you get a big muskie next to the boat. And I'm not going to say that was a super giant muskie or anything. It was a nice fish. It was a heavy fish.
Heavy.
But when you got a rod broke kind of right at the reel seat there, so I got the reel handle and the reel in one hand, and then you're trying to net the fish and hold on to the rod in another hand, and it was a kind of a learning process for us. There's a learning curve, but we figured it out. I finally grabbed the rod, and then I was able to kind of work the reel almost as a drag system, sort of, kind of fight the fish with the rod, and then kind of let line in and out by moving the reel back and forth, and then you netted that fish, and we had it in the boat pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd say it was a choreographed dance. We did good. It's like we've done that before.
Yeah, and I have. And you probably have too, many times. But man, what an incredible experience. So much fun. And yeah, I think it was 43-inch muskie, but I hadn't caught a muskie since I was probably about 13 years old. So that's a pretty special fish. That was pretty neat. Yeah. And really, you deserve all the credit because you did all the work. I just got to fight it and break your rod. So, but that was pretty neat. We got Dan with us too. We're going to try to get Dan on a fish next, and we're looking at it's late September here. I think last time we did this was maybe a week earlier.
I think so.
I think it was a little bit earlier. What's your favorite time of year to target muskies in the fall?
Generally this is it. That last week or two of September and the first week or two of October, a lot of those fish pull up into the shallow stuff. It's a great time of year for numbers of fish. You can usually go out and catch a few bites every day, so we're definitely in it right now. It's a little weird this year, though. I don't know if it's the weather, what it is. We're not seeing those fish following like they normally are, but they're eating, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Then last time we tried to time it with the moon, with the moon phase, and then we were playing the majors and minors, and we noticed that fish. Oh, here we go. All right, Dan. Dan's up. I'll grab the camera.
You're going to kind of manage the line, but I want you to leave some slack in it, if that makes sense. Yep. So right now we're kind of tight. I'm going to get you on this side.
Okay.
Yep. I don't want you to put much pressure on them. Yep. I would like to get nice and close.
All right, so we're just recording a podcast, radio show, Sporting Journal Radio, with Randin Olson here, and fish hit.
There's a good chance when we get close, he's going to go to take off, so just be ready to slack them. Hopefully, this isn't a repeat.
Yeah, don't break the rod, Dan.
I have no promises.
Are you ready? We're going to be getting real close.
Okay. Do we want to turn the clicker off, or is that all right? Doesn't matter to me. Okay.
Okay, reel down and hit him.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's fun.
Oh.
Nice. Got him. There we go. In the net.
Med radio show.
Heck yeah.
I love
That's
this
fun.
This is probably the time we should tell people how to book a trip, Randin.
I'm gonna
guide service.
I'm gonna get these hooks out just so she can get her head down.
I'm gonna get you some slack there.
Where did I set my pliers? You got that net?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Just want to get her head back in the water.
Yeah, for sure.
You got it, Dan? Okay, I'm gonna sneak around behind you.
Didn't break the rod.
Heck yeah. There we go, Dan. First muskie.
First muskie. That's a fun fish.
Congratulations.
Heavy. It's not a giant, but they're heavy. They're pretty. That hook set's awesome, and they're just beautiful fish. That's awesome.
Randin, how many times do you get people their first muskie?
A lot. I've lost count, but there's no better thrill for me. I think to be a guide, you got to like to watch people catch fish, and this is as good as it gets.
So that's pretty cool to get interrupted during a radio interview to catch a muskie. How often does that happen for you, Randin?
Not a lot.
You can't ask for anything better than that, but that was pretty cool. Dan caught his pretty much the same way that I caught mine earlier, only he didn't break his rod.
Yeah, he got to fight the fish normal.
That's pretty neat. So that's 2 fish pretty quick. Now, yesterday you caught 3 total. You had 2 pretty quick yesterday too, didn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah. Our first 2 were pretty quick, probably about a half an hour apart, which is about what those were, give or take. And that's just a sign of musky fishing. When a window opens, you got to go. You want to be on spots where there's fish.
So we shouldn't be wasting any time right now, is what I'm saying. Well, I guess we are fishing.
We're still fishing.
We're fishing again. Now, talk about where we're at with moon phases and everything then.
So interestingly enough, yesterday was the new moon, and generally speaking, the best day bites you're going to get are during the new moon. A couple days before, the day of, and a couple days after. So we hit this prime. Last year we hit it pretty good as well, but we hit this prime. This is kind of our peak bite of September, if you will.
And we're trying to fish it's just working out that way, but we're kind of trying to fish outside the majors and minors today.
Yeah, that's been the pattern out here. Musky fishing, you're always getting that beat in your head, majors and minors. But you got to pay attention because it's not always during those times when those fish go. There's like this right now, we're getting fish outside of those times, and that's the pattern.
What time is it actually even?
9:30.
9:30 right there. We got 2 fish in the boat. What time is that next? Is it a minor then that's coming up?
The major will start at 12:30.
Major at 12:30. All right, so we got 3 hours to catch a few more fish.
If the pattern holds, it's going to be a dead zone from 12:30 to 3:30.
Well, it's been good so far. We got more to come. We're filming this entire thing for a video we'll put on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch us catch those couple of fish, and then maybe some more. Whatever we catch after this interview for the podcast and radio show is over, we'll have that in the video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look for Sporting Journal Radio. And Randin, if people want to do some musky fishing with you, or walleye fishing, crappies, panfish, whatever the case may be here in Otter Tail Lakes Country, how do they reach you?
The absolute best way is just give me a call at 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook or even on the website at www.lockjawguideservice.com.
All right, Randin, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Did you know there are more than 1,000 lakes in Otter Tail County?
Yep, and I'm gonna fish as many as I can. I'm an outdoorsy otter. Nothing beats a full day of fishing for me. The lakes of Otter Tail County give me plenty of options to lower my boat and snag the perfect catch. Not an outdoorsy otter? No problem. Otter Tail County has something for everyone. You just need to find your inner otter.
To find your inner otter, go to OtterTailLakesCountry.com.
All right, this is the Sporting Journal Radio show, Sporting Journal Radio podcast, depending on where you're listening to this. If it's on the radio, thanks for tuning in on this station right here, or if you're got the podcast rolling, thanks for downloading the podcast or listening on demand at SportingJournalRadio.com. I'm Bret Amundson. We're in Branson. We're at the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers Conference right now. Here we've got a bunch of stuff going on, so we got to make this kind of quick. But we wanted to have our next guest on the show because he's new to AGLOW. He won a scholarship here this year, and we're going to find out all about all of that. It's Ali Shakoor. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, where are you from?
I am from Jackson, Michigan originally. Now I'm in Dearborn, Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit.
All right, and what do you think of the conference so far?
Oh man, it's been a blast. I came in expecting for it to be professional, but I had no idea that the people here would be so warm and receptive. Everyone's come up and introduced themselves and offered any kind of help and asked me if I needed anything, made sure I've been comfortable. So I've been really impressed. I do a lot of conferences, a lot of scientific conferences, and I've been really impressed. I've had a ball, and I've had such a good time that I'll definitely be back for another one of these.
Oh, well, when you talk about professional and scientific conferences, this is probably a bit of a change of pace. I mean, we're professional here, but we like to have a little bit of fun. It's pretty relaxing.
Yeah, and we have fun as well. But they're the same in that everyone there is passionate about the work that they do.
Sure.
So there's a common thread. And again, with my career and the schoolwork that I do, there's a common thread with natural resources and dealing with different ecosystems and whatnot. So there is a lot of overlap with those things. So it's not as different as you would think it would be.
Well, give us your background. What are you talking about?
So I am a biologist. I'm an aquatic ecologist by trade. I'm finishing up a master's degree from the School of Natural Resources at the University of Michigan, School of Natural Resources. Finishing up a doctorate at Wayne State University in Detroit. So for my dissertation research, I'm studying harmful algal blooms on Lake Erie.
Oh, really?
Their effect on early life history of walleye. I'm also doing some tracking of those blooms, how they move around the lake. So I use a multi-beam echo sonar, just a sophisticated or a bigger version of a sonar on your boat. It has 4 beams, so we actually map subsurface concentration of blue-green algae and then fish communities associated with that. So we compare inside the bloom versus outside the bloom and see if they're relating to it and everything, because there's some issues with some toxins and questions about whether it can affect their health and get into the flesh that people consume. So kind of some timely research with the increase of harmful algal blooms on Lake Erie, but it's really cool work.
Yeah, what's causing that on Lake Erie?
So those blooms are being caused by runoff. The Maumee River has the highest sediment load of any river that's tributary to Great Lakes, and it comes through a lot of farm country. It's not just the Maumee River, and it's not just the farmers. So I don't want that to get out there. But you have a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen that gets pushed into the lake. Yeah. You have some legacy compounds also that are already in the system. And so we have surface temperatures that are warming earlier in the year, staying warm later in the year, so the growing season is really kind of long. So when you have springs with a high amount of rainfall, those blooms can get really bad. In 2014, the blooms got so bad, and we had a lot of northeast winds that the Toledo water intake was inundated with harmful algal bloom. 400,000 people in southeastern lower Michigan and northwestern Ohio lost their water supply for a week.
Oh, wow.
So this isn't just a fish health thing or an outdoor thing. This is a people thing also. Yeah, so clean water, of course, so very important.
How is it affecting the walleyes?
Some of the stuff I found in the papers in revision right now, it's been submitted to be published in the Journal of Great Lakes Research. I did see that there was effect in survival of larval walleye. And people will say, well, the walleye population is doing so well right now, but these kind of effects are compounding over the years. So if things were to change a little bit and you really get a spatial overlap, a spatial and temporal overlap with the walleye spawn and the harmful algal bloom, you could potentially see some population level effects. But again, these toxins could possibly make it into the flesh of these fish. And walleye is king on Lake Erie, and it supports a $200 or so million fishery that's part of a larger $8 billion sport fishery in the Great Lakes. So again, very timely work, very, very important. I'm happy to be a part of it.
So if it gets into that flesh, then that could affect somebody's meal essentially, and what effect could humans have off of that?
Well, microcystis and their associated toxins, microcystins, they can be neurotoxic or hepatotoxic. In Ohio, in Grand Lake St. Mary's, which is outside of the Lake Erie watershed, they have bloom issues. It's in the lake. There were some families who lost family pets. They had dogs who died after playing in that water. Some of the people ended up with some liver damage. I've seen some reports and read some news articles about other countries where elderly people with compromised immune systems have actually gotten in some real health issues, and actually, there was some deaths associated with it.
And they're getting that from the water, though.
They're getting it from the water.
Meat could transmit that.
It could, and I've seen studies from Grand Lake St. Mary saying that some of the toxins will make it into the flesh of some of the panfish there.
Okay.
So again, really, really important, and it ties into, get back to my background, I'm also a tournament fisherman.
Oh, really?
So I fish the Cabela's Master Walleye Circuit and the National Walleye Tour. So the whole walleye thing it all ties together in a nice, neat little bow.
So and just going back to the research for one more question. So you're using that 4-beam sonar. Are you looking for walleyes in the blooms and then trying to capture those to sample them, or how do you
So normally when you do hydroacoustic work, you ground proof and you put a net out you kind of to back up. If you think they're walleye, or you think they're smallmouth bass, whatever the case may be, you ground proof it. But we're not doing any ground proofing yet. So what we are doing is we're measuring, and it's pretty sophisticated. It's very we're picking up individual cells of blue-green algae. So we're mapping and then the 4 beams together, you can kind of pick up the biological backscatter. So you can pick up, I'll see schools of bait fish and I'll see other schools of fish. So then what I'm going to do is I'll have some real-time monitoring that NOAA does, toxicity, pH, water temperature, things of that nature. But also there's a lot of acoustic telemetry where they're tracking fish movements. And this is where being able to identify fish comes into play. So they're tracking lake whitefish, walleye, grass carp, sturgeon, muskie. So I'll be able to overlay those fish movements with satellite imagery or low-flying airplane imagery of the bloom to see how those fish are relating to that bloom on Lake Erie.
I definitely thought you were going to say low-flying saucers for a second there. I was like, well, there's aliens involved.
That would be a heck of a reveal on your podcast
research.
here. Yeah,
wow.
Some old Area 51 type stuff going on. Yeah, for sure.
So what made you want to do this study? And is there other study? Obviously we're from Minnesota, and walleye is king there, and we live in farm country, a lot of rivers, and so that's something that could hit close to home for us. Do you know if there's other research like that going on?
There's research like this going on all over the planet. So harmful algal blooms are becoming a problem in Lake Taihu, China, Lake Titicaca in Nicaragua, Lake Ontario, Lake Winnipeg. There's an issue with harmful algal blooms. So it's happening all over the world, not just in large lakes, but in small farm ponds, in different sized bodies of water because of some different issues and everything. So this type of research is applicable and could reveal some of the things that are going on pretty much, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world in that same kind of latitude where those types of blooms kind of happen. But there's a lot of neat research out there involving harmful algal blooms and fish, terrestrial health, birds. So people are really starting to look at this now. So very applicable to the state of Minnesota also.
Yeah, I love that stuff. And not just the research into what's affecting the health of our fisheries, but being able to track fish too. I love learning about migration patterns, whether it's fish or waterfowl or whatever the case may be. Just learning behaviors, because there's so much of that involves how much success a guy has on the water. You know, a lot of people, it's our limits are too high, or we can't use 2 lines, or muskies are eating all their walleyes, whatever.
For sure.
But there's so much more research and work that gets done in the background, and projects like this that really affect our fisheries and can mean success in the long run.
Yeah, there are, and that's kind of the niche I'm, kind of put myself in the past few years. So I do a lot of seminars and outreach. I've been at National Professional Anglers Association. I do a lot of stuff back home in a few other states. I have a passion for communicating science to people who don't normally get to see it. Because like you said, people have these complaints. The muskie are eating the walleye, the limit's too low, the limit's too high. And a lot of times they only get that decision from the DNR. Hey, we're going to change the limit. But they don't get to hear, well, this went into it. This was a thought process. Well, they do a little bit, but there's
they don't
a lot
always
of times
listen.
they don't listen, or there's a distrust.
Yeah.
Being an angler, being a tournament fisherman, and being able to link what the person who lives on the Detroit River, or any other river for that matter, with some of the things that are going on ecologically, and have a conversation with them, I think kind of draws people in. They're really interested in hearing about those type of things.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you live in both worlds, and sometimes I think, don't take offense to this, but sometimes biologists, like our DNR in Minnesota, sometimes they're not always the best communicators to get the message out to the public. And they're too busy doing research or whatever. They're not professional communicators. They're, it's science. It's not communicating. So sometimes that, and they're getting better at it.
Yeah.
They know that that's been a problem. In the last few years, they've actually done a really good job improving that, and they've hired some more communicators to help spread the message.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of DNR offices and state, natural resource commissions are hiring communications people, because, a lot of them now are short-staffed.
Yeah.
You have the biologists who used to kind of be in the office taking care of everything and coordinating. They're actually out in the field now. And I see it, as a tournament guy, a lot of times before I go to a place, I'll call a biologist to ask, hey, what's going on and everything. And a lot of times they just sound swamped, And so having that communicator is good. And like you said, it's not that they don't want to take the time. A lot of times they're just so darn busy. And again, it's not, they're trained to crunch numbers and do the research and everything, and, pass that data on to someone else who may communicate it. And I see that disconnect. Something else that I try to do on some of the projects I've worked on is to ask the public. And I mentioned it the other day when I was talking up front, where if I pull up to a boat launch and I'm there to sample or something, I see someone who's lived on that lake for 75 years, I'm going to ask them, hey, how was this lake when you were a kid? How is it now? Tell me the differences you see. What's happened over time? He may not have a hardcore data set, but he's been on that lake every day for 75 years.
Yeah.
And that, it's just like indigenous knowledge. It's important that, he's in tune with what's going on. So there's been a disconnect, I think, on both sides. The little things that I try to do, for the past couple of years, is try to bridge that gap as best I can with the people around me, because, this is a lifestyle, right? We do this kind of thing because we love it. I got it from my father.
Did you?
He got it from his father.
Okay.
And so, I want to pass it on to my children, to my daughters. And sometimes I feel like I'm the last of a dying breed, because there's been this rate of attrition and we're not getting people back in. So we have to communicate these types of things and draw people in from diverse backgrounds, and draw some scientists in to be more communicators and get out in the field and everything. So that's kind of, where my passion lies, and why I wanted to come to AGLOW, to bridge that gap a little bit and to try to become a better communicator in other type media.
Was your dad and grandfather, were they walleye guys, or what did you grow up, what did they teach you?
I grew up, my father was a big bluegill maniac. He would drive, I'll never forget, I was maybe 12, 13, weekend fisherman, of course, and there was an article about there, we were in Michigan, Jackson, Michigan, Irish Hills area down by the racetrack, and there was an article about big bluegill being caught in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and I'll never forget. Let's get a lake map, let's go. And that was the kind of person he was. So that sense of adventure, hey, if there's a bite somewhere, I'll go figure it out, let's go. So I got that from him, that sense of adventure. Later on in life, I got into walleye. So with him, it was pike, panfish, big crappie, big bluegill, a lot of largemouth bass fishing. The walleye came a touch later. I took that and ran with it. But yeah, I came up doing that, and then, chasing bunnies, squirrel hunting. Pheasant was really big when I was a kid. There aren't too many, there's some, but nothing like it used to be. So just growing up hunting and fishing, it was a lifestyle. Every Thursday, Thanksgiving morning before we ate, we go bunny hunting.
Yeah.
Kicking up brush piles and everything. So it was ingrained in me from an early age. So it's something I'll always be around. It's something that I'll do until my dying day, God willing.
What got you into tournament fishing then?
Actually, I started fishing. My father, God rest his soul, passed away in 2012. And growing up, we'd always watch Bass Masters on TV, and we see this stuff, and we'd always say, man, we're good anglers. We could do that. We could hang out with those guys. And he passed in 2012, and that winter, I kind of made some changes in my life. And I thought to myself, one of the worst things you can hear is someone on their deathbed say, I wish. I wish I'd done this. I wish we'd done that. I wish I'd done that. And I thought about that really hard. And that next spring, I was like, I'm going to make that leap. And I started fishing the Master Walleye circuit in 2012, and got sucked in, had some success. I've been fortunate to win a couple events and make some championships. So
really? Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of the impetus was, again, doing those things with my father, and then just seeing him pass, and just thinking back, I didn't want to have any regrets. As far as I know, I'm here one time, and I want to see and do it all. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing it ever since, and just loving every minute of it.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to do some fishing down here?
I did. I got up on Table Rock. We caught some smallmouth bass, some spotted bass, legendary Table Rock Lake. I had a ball out there. Yeah. Today we got down in Lake Tittamooko, just some trout fishing, some rainbows. We didn't get a big one, but we saw a giant brown trout down there. And I tell you, this area, man, it rivals anywhere I've ever been. The scenery is beautiful. The people are beautiful, friendly. The natural resources, the fishing is top notch.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful place, and so happy to be here.
What do you think of the conference and the AGLOW? Your first impressions of AGLOW?
First impression, again, the people, just very professional, very welcoming, very warm, willing to go out of their way to help me. I've gotten so many cards and contact. Hey, if you ever need anything, and even while I'm here, hey, come sit down, let's talk. And so very welcoming. They've made me feel like I've been a member of AGLOW for 10 years.
How did you got a scholarship?
I did. So I got a scholarship from the National Wild Turkey Federation. Thank you very much for the scholarship. Mark Schoonveld and Lance Valentine nominated me for that, so I have to give a big shout out to those two gentlemen. But I was fortunate enough to be awarded that scholarship, which covered costs to come down here and attend the conference, pay for my conference fees. But it's something that I've wanted to do anyway. A couple of people I've talked to who are outdoor writers who know me pretty well over the years, I said, hey, you need to kind of start doing this type of thing and becoming a member of AGLOW will help facilitate that. So winning the scholarship is not the only reason I'm here. Let me put that out there.
Sure.
But again, it's been just a fantastic opportunity, and I've had a great time.
Well, it was nice to meet you. Sounds like, that research is fascinating to me. Good luck in all that research, and good luck in the fishing and tournaments and all that. And if you want to do some pheasant hunting, let me know. Come on out.
Yes, sir. I'd love to do some pheasant hunting, and maybe when I get this project wrapped up, I can come back on and we can kind of talk about some things again, and
absolutely
talk about the results of my research and kind of some next steps that we're looking at taking with that.
Yeah, for sure. Where do we find you online?
So you can find me, I'm on Facebook, on my personal page, Ali Shakoor, and I have a secondary page, Ali Shakoor Fishing. I'm also on Instagram at Ali Shakoor Fishing, and I'm on Twitter, Ali Shakoor. My handle is @FishScienceDude. So reach out, any of your questions, comments, concerns about my research, about fishing, or anything else. Always love to hear from the public.
All right, Ollie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Haybale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet, and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Haybale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today. Northern Minnesota's Walleye Factory is a year-round world-class fishing destination. The perfect getaway this summer is just a short drive to Lake of the Woods. Fish Big Traverse Bay, the Rainy River, or visit the unique Northwest Angle. To catch big fish, you have to go where the big fish are. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com. All right, now it's time to head up to Lake of the Woods to check in with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, have you recovered from the trip to Branson?
Gentlemen, I'm simply following your lead. I've had lots of hydration. I've gotten some sleep and caught up on some work. And I'm doing just fine. How about you guys?
You know, it's funny, as I have not caught up on sleep yet. It seems like we came back. I don't remember what time we got back at, Dan, but I feel like we didn't get much sleep, and we were up hunting right away again the next morning.
Yeah, you guys were hunting. You get up at dark 30 for that. I didn't do that, but that helped, I think. But no, I'll tell you, the AGLOW conference, listeners probably heard of it, the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers. But I'll tell you what, you get to rub elbows with some really cool people. There's good education. There's networking. Just a good week. But it's a tough week. I mean, you're up early. You're staying up late. You're eating and drinking more than you normally would. And it's just a long week. Really good, but it just tires you out. I don't know if that's age or just part of a conference. What do you think, Bret?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously, we're trained professionals, and we know what to expect at these events, so we're kind of prepared for it. But there's generally a lack of sleep, but it's a good time, and you've got things throughout the day where you're learning from other professionals in the industry, you're networking. But as you know, what did we call it one time, like napkin networking or whatever, the after hours where you get to sit down with somebody, there's no pressure. Like half the time you don't even realize what industry the person you're talking to is in if you don't know that. Like I say, it's somebody new to the conference. Otherwise, it's someone maybe you met for the first time. You get a kind of a relaxed situation to meet some people. It's a great opportunity to network. It's also a great opportunity for people to FaceTime with some of their favorite outdoor personalities. Dan, what do you think your highlight of the AGLOW conference was?
The food was good.
Not really. It really wasn't that great.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
So I was sitting in the hospitality suite, Joe, and I met Matt Harrison, who's with Ducks Unlimited now, and he built up a big following on social media. He did some stuff with Sydnie Wells. I think they were at like an NWTF event where he and Sydnie went around with a microphone, and they just kind of went up and interviewed people like on the street type stuff at this event, and got to be friends with her. And they've went on to film some things together and do a lot of social media content together. And Dan had just won. It was right after the awards, and Dan had won some awards, and I was like, well, Dan, follows her a lot and kind of likes what she does and everything. And I may have used the word obsessed. I may have gone a little heavy on it.
If the shoe fits.
So he's like, oh, I'll FaceTime her right now. Is he here? Is he here? And I can't find him. Like, I'm calling him, I'm texting him, I can't find him. He's not in the room. And the window to get this done was closing. And for anyone that follows me on Snapchat, you'll know that Dan also has another obsession.
Now that shoe definitely fits.
With ice cream. Dan ate more ice cream on that trip to Missouri and back than I've eaten in the last 5 years, I think. So I finally reached Dan and I said, hey, you got to get down here. I got a surprise for you. Thinking, and you thought I bought you...
Yeah, because the one cool part about the hotel is there's an ice cream shop in there. So he told me to hurry, and I thought I had an ice cream cone melting. So I sprinted up there.
Isn't that the sign of a real good boy? He's rushing upstairs to the hospitality room thinking you have an ice cream cone waiting. But it was a lot better than an ice cream cone, wasn't it?
Actually, I don't know. Ice cream would have been really nice that night.
There's free beer.
Be careful. Somebody might be listening to this, Dan.
Free beer and pizza and food and drinks in the hospitality, and he thinks I got an ice cream cone for him. So he comes in and he's like, I'm just sitting on a couch with Matt, and he's like, what? There's no ice cream. What the heck? I'm like, Dan, come here and sit down. And at the same time, then Matt turns his phone, and there's Sydnie Wells. Sydnie Wells on the phone. What was your reaction when you saw that?
It was the greatest day of my life. I've had some cool days in my life.
For people that don't know who Sydnie Wells is, give a little commentary here.
So Sydnie Wells is Tim Wells' daughter. Now, Tim Wells has a TV show, Relentless Pursuit. Huge outdoor personality. In the archery world, he spears a lot of things, accidentally speared himself one time, shoots ducks out of the air with a bow. Well, his daughter has started to gain a really big following on social media. I think she's got 200 and some thousand followers on Instagram. And Barstool Outdoors actually now features her as she's kind of their main personality on Barstool Outdoors, which is a huge platform on social media. So she's gotten really popular in the outdoor world. Is she
an attractive young lady?
She's very pretty, and she does a lot of hunting and fishing. I'm sure she's got a list very long of admirers, including one Dan Amundson over there. So it was really loud in the room. So I don't think either one of them could hear each other talking, but I'm sure it was
the connection was there.
I'm sure it's a love connection.
You could feel it.
There's Sydney right there. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, after Danny won all those awards he won, you know darn well that Sydney was messaging Matt saying, "Hey, can you get me a FaceTime with Danny Amundson?"
Yeah, and that's how it went.
Well, that's the way it went.
It was her idea.
100%.
For sure. Yeah.
So we'll just have to do it again.
Well, yeah.
Well, I just enjoy, as we talk about Sydney, look at that little grin on Danny's face. He can't help it. Look at that. I mean, it's
nobody can help it. It's. I told you, there's a connection. It's there. It's there.
Yeah.
We'll have to take her up to Lake of the Woods, Joe.
I'll tell you what. It's a great place to bring somebody you want to get to know better. And tell you what, there's been a lot of love connections made up at Lake of the Woods.
She would be somebody great to have up there. And you could say, hey, this is the award-winning Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Congratulations on your awards out of AGLOW this year.
Thank you, and you guys as well. I mean, I think it's nice to get recognition, isn't it? And it's not necessary, but it's really nice because, what people don't see are, what people don't see are the behind-the-scenes hours we put in, the late nights, the early mornings. I had a deadline the other night, 11:30 at night. I got it. I sent a return, or send. So I mean, it is nice getting some recognition, and well, you guys, kudos to you guys. I mean, it bodes to what kind of not only a fun show you have, but also the professionalism, how you're always upping the game when it comes to being an outdoor professional. It wasn't just, it was photography, it was writing, it was, numerous things for you guys. So it's very cool, and kudos to you as well. And thank you very much. Very nice.
Yeah. I got a second place in public speaking. I got beat out by the one and only Joe Henry, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. You know what? Good thing we're friends and we can applaud each other. Oh, yeah. It's also good you got a whole bunch of other awards too. Doesn't sting as bad, right?
No. It was great. It was a good time down there. Next year it'll be in Bemidji, so yes. Just down the road from you and in our backyard here in Minnesota. So we're looking forward to that, and a lot to get through between now and then. And this is the best time of year, of course, Joe, because we're out there chasing waterfowl. People are walking the woods for grouse. You can go out there and catch walleyes. I know I've been talking to a lot of people who are still fishing and are going to be fishing for a while yet. And it sounds like bite is really starting to pick up. Of course, it never really slows down too much at Lake of the Woods, but I'd assume the river is going to start getting some action here soon.
It's starting. Yeah, it has started. And I'm seeing a lot of pictures on Facebook and things of anglers showing their sonar. And in many cases, their sonar is like the whole middle of the water column. It looks like it's all static and everything. And what those are emerald shiners running up the river. And, where you have bait, you have walleyes. And there have been a lot of big walleyes being caught. I mean, heard of some 31s, some 11-pounders, that sort of thing. So, and a lot of eaters too, but the fish are moving up the river. Now, is this the big run? Is this the big blast of walleyes? I don't think it is. But I think it's definitely starting. The thing about river fish is that, like you'll hear about a great bite in 4 Mile Bay, and then you'll hear about a great bite in the river, and then the fish in 4 Mile Bay aren't quite as thick as they were yesterday. And, those fish are kind of moving through. So, I always tell people, don't go out to the orange sock on the Canadian side, anchor up for 2 days and die there. You know what I mean? If you're not catching in a spot, move around. It's a lot of river to fish, a lot of spots. Go and find some of those fish. Find out, where they're swimming, and then you're gonna be just fine. But you still got to go fishing, even though it's a fall run. You still got to go fishing.
Guys, got to be excited up at the angle about the new rules coming to the border crossing up there.
Yeah, we heard it coming a couple of weeks ago that they're going to lift the COVID vaccination requirements, as well as make the ArriveCan app optional. You don't have to use that anymore. And the government of Canada confirmed it. In fact, I got a confirming email from the Canadian consulate, I think on Monday. But so it's confirmed now that come October 1, you can drive up to the northwest angle, which means you drive about 40 miles through Manitoba, Canada, but you'll drive about 40 miles through, and you don't have to be vaccinated, and you don't have to use the Arrive can. So we're starting to get back to normalcy, and it's going to make it a lot easier for a lot of people to drive up to the angle, which it's perfect right now. I mean, they're shooting ducks up there out of layout boats. They're catching tons of walleyes and muskies. It's just a beautiful time up there. Of course, we got the approaching ice fishing season coming too. And if you've never ice fished in the Northwest Angle, it's not only is it beautiful, it's a lot of fun.
I've ice fished up there now. I don't know. I would like to duck hunt up there. That I haven't done yet, and I haven't done a whole lot of grouse hunting up around Lake of the Woods. So we might have to try to get up there yet this year, Dan, and do some sort of cast and blast trip up there. You got the 3 different species of grouse: the rough grouse, the spruce grouse, and also the Sharpies up there. So a lot of really neat opportunities to go out and see some of the scenic northern Minnesota landscape and chase some of the local wildlife around too, and then do some fishing in the river or in Big Traverse has got some walleyes right now too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I tell you this. And that's kind of to the woods now, starting to load up with fish, and it's a good sign. I mean, it's a good sign because anglers are out doing the traditional jig bite, anchored up off that south shore, and they're catching walleyes that way. And a lot of those walleyes that are staged off that south shore, some of them will slide into the Rainy River for the fall run. The other thing is when we have early ice, those fish are staged out there. They're going to stay there until early ice. So it's going to be some good ice fishing come first ice too.
Well, that's not far away. If people want to start thinking about an ice fishing trip or do some fall outdoor recreation at Lake of the Woods hunting and fishing, what should they do, Joe?
If you want the dates you want to get, I'd make reservations now, and check out our website for that. It's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.